Hello, hello, hello. Hello, everyone. This is Erica. Make sure that I'm on. Good evening. This is Monday Night Meetup for When Women Heal. So good to see everyone. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Come on in, come on in. Hello. How are you? How are you? Hi, good evening to everybody. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Make sure I am here. Yep. All right. Hello, hello. Welcome to Monday Night Meetup. How is everybody this Monday night? Okay, guys, so most of you are going to catch the replay. We're going to go ahead and get started this evening. My name is Erica Bishop, and it is indeed a privilege and an honor to be here with you all again tonight for Monday Night Meetup. And tonight, we're going to be doing part 2 of Relax, Relate, Release. So if you had an opportunity to watch last week, we were talking about Relax, Relate, Release, and we were using the example from A Different World when Whitley was going to, Debbie Allen was her psychologist, and she was teaching her how to relax, relate, release. So that was the first episode. I put 2 links within the comments from last week. So also a part of that, when we were talking about relax, relate, release, Jaleesa had recently become married. They were now a blended family, and they noticed that they really didn't know a lot about each other, and they were really having some difficult times. And these were around the holidays, is how to relate to each other. So when we're talking about relationships and how to relax, relate, release, how do we relax our expectations when it comes to expectations that someone else that we don't even have met, but we put those expectations on others, right? And how do we relate in the reference to communicating what our needs and desires are within that relationship? And how do we release to be present in the moment and not think so far ahead of what could happen wrong, what's not happening right, and all these different things that we, extra weight that we put on ourselves when it comes to those relationships. So there's another particular movie that I want to talk about in relation to relax, relate, release. And this one is called 1,000 Words by Eddie Murphy. Eddie Murphy was in this movie called 1,000 Words. And I just thought, when I had watched the movie again, I just thought it was very fitting for what we were talking about, because in this particular movie, he was this very high profile book publisher, and this was this guru who could get in to help you meditate and get into what he called the blue opal, I think is what it was called, the blue sapphire, something like that, a place to get to your inner self. So he wanted to publish this book, but the book ended up only being like 5 pages. So he wanted to get this huge book deal. Never read the book, but it was about to be 5 pages. So the moral of the story is this: there was this tree that popped up in his yard. And with this tree that popped up in his yard, every time he would speak, a leaf would fall off. Meaning that as leaves would fall off the tree, it symbolized that the tree was dying, therefore so was he, because of the words that he was choosing to use, okay? For the words that he was choosing to use. So with that being said, he got to a point where he understood that his words really mattered. We're still talking about relax, relate, release. His words really matter and that he couldn't just use his words loosely. So within this story, his mother was in a senior care home. She had Alzheimer's, and she always thought that when he would go visit his mother, that she was his father, Raymond, and Raymond, his father, left him at a young age. So what we find out is that he had all these suppressed emotions that he turned into ambition. He turned it into success. But at the core of it all, he was very angry. He was very angry at his father for leaving, not knowing why, and felt that he had to overcompensate to prove himself. So it got to the point where he was down to 3 leaves on the tree. Now, mind you, his marriage had dissolved almost because of the fact that he could not communicate with his wife. Now, one of the points that I want to make with this is, and y'all excuse me for one quick moment, I had to grab me a fan because I didn't want to have a fan on and it be too hot and listening to all that noise. But I'm in the middle. I'm at that age now where I'm having what they call hot flashes every now and again. And my flash just came on, so I'm gonna have to pull out the little church fan here for a second. So he wasn't communicating with his wife. Now, when I looked at this, one of the things when we talk about relax, relate, release, he was a very talkative person. But his wife did not understand that his character and his demeanor had shifted. So she took it upon herself as rejection. I want to pit stop there for a second. When we're talking about relationships, relax, relate, release, we have to also be aware enough of not only ourselves, but the other people around us when they take a shift and something about them begins to change. Hey, Tanisha, how are you? And what has changed within them, and not take on changes within others as abandonment to ourselves, as something negative to ourselves, or as rejection to ourselves. And that's that part of relaxing when we talk about being in our relationships, because when God causes others in our lives to shift and to move, it does not mean that they're abandoning you. It does not mean that they are rejecting you. It does not mean that they dislike you. They're just in the midst of a shift. And they're trying to understand, what is this new dynamic that I am in? And it is a challenging place to be in what we call the in-between. The in-between of my coming out and my going into something new. My coming out of something old and going into something new. So when we relax in understanding and knowing that I love this person loves me, but I can understand that they may be shifting in their life, okay? And we relate to that person to understand that that is the timing and the season that they need to make that shift, all right? So his wife did not understand what was going on. She had left him. He had lost his job because there were some other different situations that happened. Of course, this is a comedy that caused him to do some things that were very out of character, and he lost his job. But at the end of the day, what happened was it forced him to begin to nurture the tree, which means he had to nurture his inner self. He literally put tape over his mouth and began to speak with his inner voice. Okay? And it's okay to be silent. There's a scripture that says, study to be quiet. Because our yea should be yea and our nay should be nay. Our words matter and our words count. And our words have so much power. And when we look at how we have framed our life, we have framed our life with our own words. In those times when we were not relaxed, when we did not know how to relate to each other, and we didn't know how to release a negative situation, we very well may have spoken something that framed our life at that moment. Hi, Lorene. How are you? Thank you for joining, ladies. Relax, relate, release. So he's at the point now where he has to sit at the tree. He's reading the book, and now he has submitted to taking his inner journey. His inner journey. This was all about taking his own inner journey. So as he sat at the tree, after he went through this whole different array of emotions and literally trying to commit suicide, so to speak, by his words, because every time he spoke, leaves would fall off the tree, and he was just saying stuff just to be saying it, and all these leaves were falling. He had a colleague that tried to stop talking, what are you doing? So when he finally came to his senses, he put tape over his mouth and he began to speak with his inner voice. He began to speak with his spirit. He began to speak with his soul. He began to speak with what was really in his heart. And as he sat at the tree and he read the book, and I believe it was just a book of wisdom, he began to take this inner journey, and he has this epiphany. He has this epiphany that has taken him all the way back to his childhood. When he was sitting at the dinner table with his mother, they were laughing and talking. He was sitting at the head of the table, and the little boy that turned to him, which was him as a little boy, he said, "I'm here, I'm you." He said, "No, you're not." He said, "Dad, you left. Why did you leave?" And it was the inner child that needed to be healed. Because all his life from that moment, when his father had left him, he felt that he wasn't good enough. He felt that he had to overcompensate, and he went his whole life asking these questions of, who am I and why did Dad leave? So he took that anger and he turned it into what seemed to be good ambition, which ambition is good, but at the core, why are you being so ambitious? And what is the thing that is fueling you? So he realized that he had a lot of anger. So now he goes to the nursing home with his mother. Hi, Tiara. Hi, Joanna. How are you? He goes to visit his mother on her birthday. And she is talking to him. She said, "Raymond, is that you?" And he just says, yes. He doesn't have a lot of words to speak, because any other time he would be angry when she would ask him, his name was Jack, was he Raymond? He would get so angry because he didn't want to associate himself with his dad. And he just said yes. And she said, "Oh, he has just grown up to be a fine young man. He is so smart. He needs to know that you love him. He's so full of anger because of what you did not tell him." And he realized that he was fueling his life with the anger he had from his dad leaving. So he had another epiphany as a little boy where he went to go to his father's grave. And at this time, he has 3 leaves left on the tree. He has 3 words that he can use. And he has to choose wisely these words, because when he uses these 3 words, that is symbolizing to be the end of his life. As he's at the grave and it begins to rain, he has epiphany again of the little boy. And he says, "Dad, where have you been?" He said, "I've been waiting for you. I looked up for you and you never came." And he said, "Well, how can I make it up to you?" He said, "Chase me." So he begins to chase him in this vision that he's having. And after this is all over, he says these powerful 3 words: "I forgive you." And at that moment, the earth began to shake. Everything begins to rumble, and it looks like life is coming to an end. And he wakes up with the sun shining. The tree begins again with all new leaves on it, because it was those 3 words that he needed in order, that he needed in order to change his life. I forgive you. He needed to relax in the moment to know that I am harboring anger and some suppressed emotions. that I need to let go. He had to relate in the fact of not being so defensive with meeting his mother's, because the entire time that she was talking to him, when she thought she was talking to her husband, she was leaving clues to get him to that place in his journey. And he had to release the unforgiveness. He had to release the unforgiveness. And at that moment when he woke up, everything about his life changed. He no longer felt that he had to fill those quiet spaces with extra words that did not necessarily bring value. Some of those words that he used prior to his change actually hurt people, offended people. But now he knew that his words mattered, because he relaxed, he related, and he released, so that he could transform to the greater person, the greater version that he needed to be of himself. It was those 3 words, I forgive you, that he died to the old man, so to speak, and he woke up as a new version of himself, full of life, bearing greater fruit of love, understanding compassion and empathy, having a greater degree of self-awareness, having a greater degree of social awareness, understanding the people around him. When we relax and stop carrying all the heavy burdens of the past and things that have hurt us, and actually take all that extra stuff out of our bag of life. And when we relate to the people around us and be open to hear what it is that they have to say, and I will always say feedback is a gift. Feedback is not for you to be offended. Feedback is a gift because it makes us better. Especially when we're open to it and we're open to ask for it. But it has to be the right circle of people around you in order to be able to give you that feedback honestly and openly and with love. And you know that they're not intentionally trying to hurt you. They just want you to be your best self. It's very rare to find people who honestly want you to be your best self. So, he had to learn. And then when he released all of the unforgiveness, he opened up his life to something completely brand new. He could hear his wife. That enriched their relationship. And he also began to appreciate not the wounded him, but the healed him in his inner voice. It's that place of healing. It's that place where we can trust the healed version of ourselves. When we relax, when we relate, when we release. So I just want to take a few minutes just to share that with you all today. And if you have any questions, please put them in the comments. I am just so excited about what's about to come forth. And we're going to continue with Relax, Relate, Release for the rest of the month. And we're going to learn a lot of different things of how we can truly let go. And I will never tell you to relax your standards. But I will tell you or challenge you to put your expectations at the feet of God. Because when we put our expectations at the feet of God, we're never disappointed, because God never comes up short. The problem is when we put so many expectations on people, we find ourselves disappointed, especially when they're unspoken expectations. Some people just don't know because they've never experienced it. Everybody's life has taken a different turn and a different journey. And there's some people who did not get your lesson and you didn't get their lesson. But put your expectations at the feet of God. And when he moves through people to bless you, to love you, to be there for you, to support you, you'll never be disappointed. Because he says, I know the plans that I have for you to not to harm you, but to give you a hope and a future. He said, I will not withhold no good thing from you. All the things that are good, he will never withhold those from you. He always has those readily and available to you. And he gives them to you through people. And the only way you know that you've been healed from a thing, you have to engage people. People can say, I'm good, I'm well, I'm fine, where they've never been around anybody for a significant period of time. But it's when you engage people, you really get the test to know that you've grown and that you've healed and that you've overcome. There are never any losses. There are always lessons. And in those lessons, we take those. And the other beautiful thing about that movie was he ended up writing a book about his journey. The whole point of him going to that place was for him to write his own book about his journey of healing with the words that he needed to speak. I forgive you. So what are those 3 words we need to tell someone? I hear you. I forgive you. I love you. I appreciate you. I see you. I adore you. I think very well of you. That might be more than 3 words. But what are those words that we can speak to others? And what are those words that we even need to speak to ourselves? In that place of relax, relate, and release for me is when I said, Erica, I forgive you. I forgive you for the mistakes that you made. I forgive you for the bad decisions. I forgive you for staying in some things longer than what you were supposed to. I forgive you. I love you. I appreciate you. You are awesome. You are love. Sometimes those words are not always about other people. It's about those words we even need to speak to ourselves. As we relax and forgive ourselves and not live in that place of the shoulda, woulda, coulda, or I wish I could change, or all the mistakes that I've made. And we begin to be open again. Take down the drawbridge that we so eloquently put up and say that I just don't have time for drama. I just don't have time. But you pull up this drawbridge, so therefore you don't let anything out nor let anything in. And we release and we exhale, we breathe, and we open ourselves to love, to be loved, to give love, and to receive love. Everybody is not out to get us. That's what the trick of the enemy will want us to think. For us to always be in that place of anxiety to wait for the other shoe to drop. Trick of the enemy. To have us in the spiral, in the spin in our own head, to think that someone's always out to take from us. But there are so many people here who are ready and willing to love on you. How do I know? When Women Heal. How do I know? I see it every week. That's what we're here to do, is to create this safe space to love you fully in who you are, unapologetically, transparently, without any conditions. Relax, relate, release. Just breathe. Do something for you. I've been working a lot of hours for a long time with the holiday season. Being in retail and an essential worker, we haven't really had a break since the beginning of COVID. And I'm starting to feel it in my body. And I've had to say, Erica, it's okay to stop. Nothing's going anywhere. Take time for you. So that meant kicking up my feet, turning everything off, and taking a moment to relax, to be present in the moment, and to release all the tension, stress, and anxiety of all the things that have been happening. It's not until we relax our shoulders and we breathe and exhale, we realize how tight we've been and how much we have been carrying. Put the baggage down. Lighten the load. It's time. Because there's so many great things that are happening. So, I hope that this was good for you. I love you all. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on Relax, Relate, Release Part 2. Our words have so much power. How are we adding value to not only our own lives, because we create our life by framing it with our own words, but what are those words of encouragement that you could give somebody else? Sometimes it's good. I got a message from somebody today through Messenger, and it just blessed me. It was just random. And the sister said, she said, you're doing so good. Keep doing what you do. Because sometimes we don't see the immediate impact in the things that we're doing, and we think that we're serving in vain, but we're not. There are times some people will never come back and tell you thank you, and it's okay. As long as God is pleased with what you're doing. How do I know? And I'm going to give you this quick, and I'm going to go. It's the story of the 10 lepers. Jesus was in town, and there were 10 lepers. And he healed them. He said, you're going to be healed as you go. Now go your way. 9 of them walked, and only 1 came back to say thank you. They got the healing, and they kept on moving. But only 1 came back and told Jesus thank you out of the 10. You know that you've done exactly what God has told you to do. Great is thy reward in heaven. That's the only thing that matters. The peace within your heart and spirit to know that you have done what God has told you to do. You may not get a thank you. You may not get a pat on the back. But your blessings are nigh you for being obedient. So I encourage you to keep doing what you're doing. Because the world has been waiting on your excellence, your drive, your energy, your love, your compassion. The world has been waiting on you. You matter. Your voice matters. Your encouragement matters. Relax, relate, release. Relax your mind. Release all the negative things that someone may have said, may have commented, tried to throw shade, and relate. Relate to your assignment, relate to your purpose, relate to your destiny. Be present in the moment. This is my time. I love you all. Have an excellent week, and I will be back with you again next week for part 3 of Relax, Relate, Release. Love you all. Take care.